So Anderson opens the Emperor's New Clothes by introducing us to the Emperor himself. He doesn't have a name, nor does his kingdom, but as tempting as it is to call him Kuzco, I'm gonna fight the urge to avoid confusion. Instead, we're gonna call him Tony, and his kingdom, Tonytopia. Now I'm sad to say that Tony is not a very good leader. He pays no mind to strengthening his military or his relationship with his citizens. Literally all this dude cares about is wearing the most elegant and expensive attire possible, and the only reason he'd ever make public appearances was to show it off. Then one day, two swindlers who knew about the Emperor's unhealthy obsession came into town with the intention of taking advantage. They approach His Majesty and claimed that they could weave a cloth so fine that it'd be invisible to anyone who was unfit for their job or hopelessly stupid. Plot twist though, the oh-so-talented weavers are trying to pull one over on your boy who just gobbles up every bit of their BS. Without asking for references or even a single example of something they'd woven before, he just gives them a big stack of money along with the most delicate silk and finest gold thread the kingdom has to offer so they can get to work right away. Little does he know, they're not even using the materials he's giving them. Instead, they just shove it all into their bags before going back to work on nothing at all. A few days go by and Emperor Tony is getting curious about how much progress the weavers have made, but he's a little too nervous to check on them himself. After all, if he goes to visit them and it turns out he can't see the cloth, it either means he's unfit to rule or hopelessly stupid. The funny thing is, we the audience already know both to be true. Instead of going himself, Tony sends his trusted prime minister because he's always shown himself to be an intelligent man who's good at his job. But lo and behold, when the PM goes to the weaver's workshop, he sees them working tirelessly at the loom and starts to tweak because he can't see the fabric. Obviously, you can't tell Tony about this because it means he's unfit for office, right? So get this, he lies and says it's chef's kiss. Meanwhile, the weavers, who see that no one is catching on to their literal charade, keep on asking for the finest of silks, even more golden thread, and of course, more payment. Then, a few days later, Tony sends another servant over to check on him, and of course he can't see the cloth either, but he also lies about it and says it's exquisite. So at this point, the pressure is really on Tony to just grow some cojones and check out the weaver's work himself. His servants are all talking about how gorgeous it is, rumors about its magical properties have spread throughout the kingdom. He can't put it off any longer. The problem is he's still feeling insecure about whether or not he's a big fat idiot, so he invites his entourage to check out the loom along with him. During their visit, the swindlers did a very convincing job of fake weaving, and Tony's entourage did an even better job pretending they could see what was being weaved. So guess what? Even though Tony didn't see a single thread of fabric on that loom, he pretended it was the most stunning piece of cloth he had ever laid eyes on. Then, one of his very helpful servants suggested that Tony wear these fresh fly threads while marching in the grand parade that was scheduled in just a few days, and because your boy couldn't be called out on his bluff, he agreed. So when the day finally comes and it's time for your highness to get dressed, the weavers put on this big show of delicately cutting the fabric and delicately sewing pieces together. Then they slowly raised up his trousers and slowly pulled the shirt over his head. But even after he put on the coat and all, the emperor didn't feel like he was wearing anything. He felt totally naked, but the weaver said that was because the fabric was as light as spider webs. Man, people got away with so much more before you could just Google shit. Is there really fabric that's lighter than spider webs? Interesting. Cut off their heads. Sadly, the emperor couldn't Google anything. He couldn't even ask Jeeves for some insight. So he had the servants attach a train to his jacket and marched right out the palace gates in front of a crowd of his cheering citizens. And what's really funny about this is no one reacted to him being naked. Since they all knew that not being able to see his outfit meant they were stupid, they all pretended to fawn over the masterful handiwork of the artisans, saying things like, "Those are the sickest fits he's ever worn," and "Check out the drip on this guy." But in the midst of all their cheering, a tiny child's voice cries out, "But the emperor isn't wearing anything," and in that instant, the illusion is shattered. There's something about the innocence of the child and his lack of something to lose that tears down the public self-imposed blinders, and they realize, wait, it's not just me. The emperor really isn't wearing any clothes. Of course, the emperor realized that at the exact same time everyone else did, but he couldn't let himself be psyched out. He stood up even straighter than before, vertically, not horizontally, and finished the parade with his head held high. This one, I mean. As for the swindlers, they skipped town during the parade and were never heard from again. And that is what I love about fairy tales. Sometimes the bad guys get to win.